Let's face it, modern dating has undergone a fundamental shift. The average man isn't solely competing with other men anymore. He's up against a woman's inflated sense of attention, validation, and ego, relentlessly fueled by likes, DMs, compliments, and an unending stream of men vying for her affection. She hardly needs to exert effort. Merely existing suffices, and consequently, many women carry an ego so towering, they behave as though you're fortunate simply to be overlooked by them. But here's a crucial truth. A woman's ego thrives only when you sustain it. If you cease to feed it, it begins to crack. And as it cracks, her perception of you starts to transform. You see, most men attempt to win her over with an abundance of compliments, gifts, emotional availability, and boundless patience. Yet, what invariably occurs? She loses interest. She perceives you as predictable, safe, weak. Her ego swells. She understands you'll pursue her, regardless of how coldly she behaves. That's precisely where most men falter. And that's precisely where you are going to distinguish yourself. This approach isn't about disrespect or engaging in manipulative games. It's about reclaiming your power as a man and learning how to subtly, confidently reduce a woman's ego, even if she currently shows no interest. Why is this important? Because when her ego is inflated, she won't recognize your true value. But when her ego is effectively checked, she begins to perceive you as the singular man who isn't kneeling for her attention. This video is intended for the man who is weary of being overlooked, manipulated, or trapped in the friend zone. It's for the man ready to flip the script, calmly, powerfully, and entirely on his own terms. Let's dissect this process step by step. How to reduce any woman's ego, even if she's not interested. 1. Be the man who doesn't flinch in today's dating environment. The most potent action a man can take is to remain completely unfazed. A woman's ego flourishes on emotional reactions. The instant you flinch, give chase, or overreact to her distance or lack of interest, her ego inflates because she instantly recognizes she has you. That, right there, is the core of the game. Your emotional response serves as her power source. But the man who doesn't flinch, he disrupts her entire system. When you refuse to flinch, you become unpredictable. She cannot categorize you as just another man seeking her. She cannot confine you to the friend zone or the endless orbit of men circling her as if she were the sun. Most women nowadays are accustomed to men leaping through hoops. They anticipate validation. They expect pursuit. They expect you to intensify your efforts when they withdraw. And when you don't, that unsettles their ego more profoundly than any insult ever could. This doesn't mean you should be cold or arrogant. It means you must master control over your reactions. If she doesn't respond to your message, avoid double texting. If she pulls back, do not lean in. If she acts as though she is superior to you, resist the urge to prove your worthiness. Instead, remain centered, remain calm, stay within your frame. There is strength in silence. There is power in stillness. The less you flinch, the more she will wonder what makes you so composed. And that very curiosity is what begins to diminish her ego. She starts to grasp that you are not solely impressed by her appearance. You are not present simply to bolster her. You are a man with options, purpose, and control. And she will either elevate herself to meet your standard, or she will lose you to someone who does. Let me offer a practical illustration. Imagine you are conversing with a woman who abruptly becomes distant. Perhaps she cancels plans or takes an excessive amount of time to reply. Most men would panic. They would send another text, try to mend things, or seek reassurance. But you do nothing. You disappear for a few days. You go live your life. You don't call. You don't chase. Suddenly, her ego takes a hit. She begins to think, wait, why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he trying harder? Did I lose him? That specific moment marks the shift in the dynamic. That's when you start to reduce her ego, not with words, but with your disciplined composure. Always remember, the instant you flinch, you fall under her control. But the moment you remain still, composed, and emotionally grounded, you become the one man she cannot decipher. And a woman's ego doesn't endure long when she feels uncertain about her hold over you. 2. Don't reward beauty with attention. One of the most significant pitfalls men encounter today is automatically rewarding a woman's beauty with unwavering attention, lavish praise, or excessive effort. And this behavior is actively eroding your power. You need to grasp this fundamental truth. In the modern world, beauty is no longer a rarity. It is omnipresent. On Instagram, TikTok, dating apps, and in real life. You will encounter women who are attractive, often filtered, and consistently flaunted. And consequently, women are accustomed to being admired solely for their appearance, without ever needing to offer anything beyond that. This creates a precarious imbalance, a woman with an inflated ego, and no genuine effort toward connection. But here's the inviolable rule. A man of true value does not reward beauty unless it is reciprocated with effort, character, and genuine interest. If you are the type of man who dedicates all your time, attention, and validation to a woman simply because she looks appealing, she will not respect you. She will undoubtedly relish the ego boost, yes, but she will not perceive you as someone she needs to impress. She will view you as merely part of the crowd, just another man mesmerized by her appearance. And the moment you fall into that category, you have already forfeited your position of power. To effectively reduce a woman's ego, you must become the man who does not treat beauty as a grand prize. Treat it as commonplace. Treat it as insufficient, on its own, to earn access to your valuable energy. When she comprehends that you are not pursuing her simply because she is attractive, something profound within her shifts. Her ego, which is accustomed to being inflated by eager attention, suddenly encounters a wall. She begins to ponder, why isn't this man reacting? Why doesn't he care how appealing I am? That very self-doubt is precisely what initiates the erosion of her inflated ego. Now, this does not imply that you should be rude or dismissive. You can still be polite, kind, and even flirtatious if the atmosphere is right, but only when she earns it. The crucial point is not to offer attention on a default setting. Instead, observe. Assess if she brings more to the table than just her looks. Is she kind? Is she witty? Is she reciprocating your interest? Is she genuinely attempting to get to know you? If she isn't, then you owe her absolutely nothing. Let's make this tangible with an example. Imagine you encounter a woman who is undeniably attractive. She knows it. You can discern that she is accustomed to men bending over backward to obtain her number. But you are different. You maintain a light conversation, ask a couple of thoughtful questions, and then politely conclude it after 5 minutes. You depart with a smile, without even requesting her contact information. What transpires? She is caught off guard. Her ego takes a blow. She is accustomed to wielding power, but now she is left wondering why you didn't try harder. She becomes intrigued. And that intrigue intensifies precisely because you have just demonstrated that beauty alone does not command your attention. This tactic isn't about playing games. It's about establishing clear standards. A man who treats beauty as unremarkable in isolation is a man who instantly distinguishes himself from the masses. And the more you behave as though you have seen it all before, the more rapidly her ego will begin to diminish. 3. Create emotional distance. Most men commit the critical error of becoming emotionally invested too prematurely. The moment a woman exhibits even a modicum of attention, a man opens up completely. He begins to envision a shared future. He starts lavishing compliments, expressing vulnerability, pouring out effort and energy, hoping it will ignite something deeper. But here is the uncomfortable reality. When you emotionally invest in a woman too quickly, especially one who isn't demonstrating equivalent interest, you unwittingly feed her ego. And the more you give emotionally, the less valuable your presence becomes in her estimation. To effectively reduce a woman's ego, you must create emotional distance, not because you are attempting to be cruel or cold, but because you grasp a deeper truth. Your emotions are a valuable currency, and you do not spend them on someone who has not genuinely earned them. A woman's ego expands when she knows you are emotionally available, waiting, and eager even when she isn't reciprocating that same energy. Emotional distance reverses that dynamic. It makes her uncomfortable in the most beneficial way. Why? Because now, she is the one pondering. She is the one questioning. She is the one who feels uncertain. When you maintain control of your emotions, you command the dynamic. You remain grounded, unaffected, and singularly focused on your own life. That silence, that deliberate pause, that absence of emotional rich resonates differently. It communicates to her that you are not desperate. It tells her you possess other priorities. And, most significantly, it tells her she does not control your mood, your mindset, or your self-worth. Creating emotional distance is about becoming internally untouchable. You may still communicate, spend time with her, or flirt occasionally, but your heart remains guarded. Your value is not predicated on whether she responds. You remain centered within your own world. You become an enigma, a challenge, and an ego cannot thrive in uncertainty. Her ego craves confirmation, attention, and emotional investment. When you deny her that not out of malice, but out of self-respect, her entire sense of control begins to unravel. Here's an example. You've been casually interacting with a woman for a few weeks. She's inconsistent, hot and cold. Some days she's completely engaged. Other days, she disappears. Most men would confront her emotionally, asking, "What's wrong? Are you losing interest?" But not you. You notice the shift, and instead of reacting, you quietly withdraw. You stop texting first. You don't reach out. You let her sit with the silence. You don't complain or ask questions. You simply become distant, and that silence speaks more powerfully than any words. Now she's the one checking her phone. She's the one wondering if she has lost your attention. That's how ego begins to shatter when her behavior no longer sways you. Emotional distance is not rejection, it is reflection. You offer her a mirror. You demonstrate that you are not an emotional slave, and that you do not pursue affection. You allow her to experience the consequence of her inconsistency. And in that very space, her ego diminishes because she realizes, for the first time, she is not in command of your emotions. For, don't be easily impressed. Nothing inflates a woman's ego more rapidly than a man who is easily impressed. The moment you appear starstruck, overly amazed, or excessively eager, just because she extends a small amount of attention, she instantly categorizes you, the category of men she can control. This is particularly perilous in today's dating landscape, where many women anticipate praise and pedestal treatment from the very first conversation. But the man who is not easily impressed, he disrupts her established pattern. He compels her to pause and reevaluate her position. When you demonstrate to a woman that you have witnessed beauty before, that you have possessed options before, and that her mere existence does not astonish you, you transmit a potent message. You are not just another man attempting to win her over. You are a man who recognizes value, but you do not exaggerate it. You do not inflate her self-image. You simply assess her like any other human being, and that level of calm indifference immediately reduces her ego, because most men distribute their enthusiasm like free candy. You see, women today are surrounded by men who are trying far too hard. Compliments fly like confetti. Simple conversations are inundated with phrases like, "You're amazing, you're perfect, and I've never met anyone like you." And the unfortunate reality is, many of these men haven't even taken the time to genuinely evaluate who she truly is. They are merely reacting to her appearance. But here is the truth. If you desire to stand out, you must allow her to impress you, not the other way around. Being unimpressed does not equate to being rude or cold. It signifies possessing standards. It means taking your time to observe her attitude, her effort, her consistency, and her values. You engage her with curiosity, not obsession. You respond with confidence, not desperation. And when she realizes she cannot elicit a strong reaction from you simply by being attractive or charming, she begins to feel exposed. Her ego, which is accustomed to automatic praise, now has to earn your approval. That alone can instigate a significant shift in the dynamic. Let's illustrate with a real-life example. Imagine you are at a lounge or an event, and a stunning woman approaches you for a conversation. She expects you to fall into the usual rhythm, offer a compliment, request her number, attempt to impress her. But instead, you remain cool. You listen. You ask a few thoughtful questions. When she says something superficial or unoriginal, you don't feign a grand reaction. You simply nod. You remain neutral. You demonstrate to her that beauty does not automatically buy influence in your world. That calm energy challenges her ego. Now she desires your approval, not vice versa. This approach cultivates curiosity. She will begin to wonder what caliber of women you have been associated with. She will wonder what makes you so composed. And, more importantly, she will realize she cannot rely solely on her ego to draw you in. She will be compelled to present something authentic, something meaningful, something deeper. And that is where ego begins to dissipate. 5. Stop reacting. To her tests, every man who has spent sufficient time around women comprehends this truth. Women test men, whether consciously or unconsciously. These tests are not always dramatic or overtly obvious. Sometimes, they are subtle. She might delay her replies, tease you, cancel plans, mention other men, disregard your compliments, or act as though your time holds little value. Most men succumb to these traps. They respond with insecurity, overcompensation, or raw emotional reactions. And that, precisely, is how a woman's ego is nourished. She learns she can manipulate you. She observes that her minor actions trigger significant reactions from you. But when you stop reacting to her tests, you deprive her ego of its essential fuel. Here's the core principle. When a woman tests you, what she is truly attempting to ascertain is whether you are stable, grounded, and genuinely masculine. She wants to see how you handle discomfort. She wants to know if you will crack, give chase, or beg the moment she withdraws. Most men fail because they internalize her test. They attempt to explain themselves, argue back, or prove their worth. But you are not most men. You are going to pass her test by doing the one thing her ego cannot endure. You are going to remain unshaken when she throws a test your way. The objective is not to win the argument or to immediately rectify the situation. The objective is to stand firm in who you are and what you represent. If she mentions another man, do not display jealousy. Act uninterested. If she ignores a message, do not double text. Go silent. If she cancels a date, do not become upset. Proceed with your evening as planned. This kind of emotional discipline creates a mirror she was unprepared for. Her test bounces off you and strikes her own ego, and that stings. It compels her to confront the reality that you are not one of the predictable emotional responders she is accustomed to. Let's bring this to life with a practical scenario. A woman you are dating suddenly mentions that another man she knows is consistently doing favors for her. It's subtle, but it's a test. She wants to observe your reaction. A typical man might begin comparing himself or utter something defensive, but you simply nod and calmly say, "Cool. Hope he keeps it up," and then effortlessly change the topic. That response demonstrates power. You are not attempting to compete. You are not rattled. And that shakes her ego to its core, because she has just realized her games do not work on you. These tests will manifest in various forms, particularly with women who possess high egos. But here's the beauty. The less you react, the more her ego crumbles. She begins to question her own power. She starts wondering why her old tricks have no effect on you. That questioning evolves into reflection. And that reflection, that is where genuine attraction blossoms. Not from you pleasing her, but from you proving she cannot destabilize you. A woman's ego thrives on control. It dies when she encounters a man she cannot control. And the only path to becoming that man is by mastering your reactions. When you cease providing her with emotional fuel, you quietly and completely reclaim the power. Point 6. Hold her accountable. Subtly. One of the most underappreciated qualities in a man is his capacity to hold a woman accountable, but in a manner that does not appear aggressive, needy, or overtly emotional. Most men either choose silence and tolerate everything, or they erupt and make demands. But the man who understands how to subtly hold a woman accountable without losing his composure is the man who immediately begins to shrink her ego and shift the dynamic in his favor. When a woman realizes she can get away with poor behavior, flakiness, disrespect, or emotional games without any consequence, her ego grows unchecked. She perceives you as just another man who doesn't value himself enough to walk away or speak up. But when you calmly, confidently address her behavior, not with drama, but with composure, she is compelled to reflect. She is forced to reconsider her actions. Her ego is no longer coddled. It is being challenged, and that is precisely where the reset begins. Let's be clear, holding her accountable does not mean scolding her or issuing ultimatums. That only makes you appear insecure. What it means is possessing clear boundaries and allowing your actions, not just your words, to enforce them. For instance, if she cancels a date at the last minute without a valid excuse, do not become upset. Simply state, "No worries," and then do not reschedule. Wait for her to initiate it. If she replies with terse messages, mirror her energy, or cease texting altogether. If she disrespects your time, reduce your availability. You are not punishing her. You are simply not rewarding behavior that deviates from your standards. This approach is effective because it triggers something unfamiliar within her: accountability without confrontation. She is accustomed to either being ignored or being argued with, but you are different. You don't argue. You don't beg. You don't plead for respect. You simply act accordingly. And that makes her uncomfortable in the most beneficial way. Her ego begins to shrink because you are demonstrating to her, without yelling or insulting, that you will not tolerate anything less than respect. Allow me to paint a picture. You've been casually seeing a woman, and you observe that she consistently arrives late, not once or twice, but habitually. The average man would either overlook it or address it in a complaining manner. But you, the next time she is late, you don't wait, you leave. Then, when she messages asking your whereabouts, you simply state, "I don't wait around. Let me know when you're serious about showing up." Then you go silent. That single action will do more to reduce her ego than 10 lengthy conversations. She will know she crossed a line, and she will also know you are not the type of man who tolerates it. Subtle accountability works because it is rooted in strength, not emotion. You do not need to lecture her. You do not need to demand anything. You allow your actions to speak for you. That is how you break the cycle. That is how you compel her to reevaluate. And that is how you gradually deflate the overgrown ego that modern dating has inflated for far too long. 7. Let her chase the mystery. If you wish to significantly reduce a woman's ego, even one who appears completely uninterested, you must become the one man she cannot quite decipher. Mystery is a potent weapon. Most men reveal everything far too soon: their feelings, their intentions, their schedule, even their vulnerabilities. They hand over the complete blueprint of who they are in the initial conversations, believing that honesty and openness will earn respect. But in reality, the more predictable you are, the easier it is for her ego to dismiss you. Because if she knows precisely how you feel and exactly what your next move will be, there is no tension, no curiosity, no genuine reason for her to emotionally invest. You reduce a woman's ego by making her work for the answers, not through manipulation, but through disciplined silence, a controlled presence, and a powerful sense of independence. You do not overshare. You do not inundate her with emotional availability. You do not act as though she is the absolute center of your universe. Instead, you create space for her to wonder. You make her curious. You allow her to reside in the unknown. Mystery is not about playing games. It is about restraining the urge to prove yourself. You become intriguing when you allow her to observe you without constantly explaining yourself. When she is unsure of what you are thinking, when she doesn't know what your next action will be, that is when her ego begins to quiet down, because it is no longer in command of the narrative. It is now chasing clarity. It is actively trying to figure you out. And the moment a woman begins attempting to figure you out, you have successfully reversed the power dynamic. Let's illustrate this in a real-life scenario. You encounter a woman who is accustomed to men oversharing and trying excessively hard, but you keep conversations concise but engaging. You provide her with just enough attention to spark curiosity, but you never fully explain your intentions or your moves. One day you are available. The next, you are off the grid, pursuing your own endeavors. She begins texting more, inquiring about your whereabouts, dropping subtle hints. Why? Because you did not hand over your soul for free. You left something for her to pursue. Mystery is effective because it starves the ego of certainty. An ego thrives on certainty. It desires to feel superior to you. It wishes to predict your behavior. It wants to feel secure in the knowledge that you will always be present, always reacting, always reaching out. But when you break that pattern, when you become the one she cannot quite label, that is when her ego takes a significant hit. That is when she starts doubting herself instead of you. And that very doubt generates attraction. Here's the secret. Women do not fall for what they fully comprehend. They fall for the man who leaves a lingering question mark in their mind. The man who displays interest without desperation. The man who connects without overexposing himself. When she realizes you are not attempting to win her, but rather making her qualify for your attention, her ego is no longer in control. You have placed her in a position where she must earn your attention, not the other way around. Reducing a woman's ego is not about manipulation, disrespect, or engaging in childish games. It is about stepping into your inherent masculine power and unequivocally refusing to bow to superficial validation. When you stop reacting, stop disproportionately rewarding beauty, subtly hold her accountable, and diligently protect your emotions, you fundamentally become the man she cannot control. Her ego diminishes, not because you forcefully compel it, but because you simply cease to nourish it. And in that crucial space, genuine attraction begins to flourish. Be the man who doesn't flinch, who leads with an intriguing mystery, and who profoundly understands his own value. That is how you irrevocably shift the dynamic and compel her to perceive you through an entirely different, powerful lens.